In the last video, we made sure that we got all the characters and put them into our store. But now it's time to start displaying this stuff onto the page. So the first thing we want to do is create a component inside source components, and we're going to call it simply character list. So character list.js. First things first, like always, we need to make sure we're importing React. We also need to import another function that we haven't seen yet. It's called connect, and put simply, it allows us to connect our component to the store that we have. So anytime the state is updated, it will notify our component, and our component will be able to update accordingly. We need to create our component here, and then we need to make sure we're exporting default character list. This is all pretty basic React stuff. So if we're going to connect our component to the store, we need to use the connect component to do so. So what we need to do is we need to actually wrap our character list in a connected component. That is what connect does underneath the hood, is it creates a new component that talks to the store and makes sure that the correct things are passed to our component through props. Connect is actually a curried function, so you actually have to call it twice. You have connect, and we'll have some things that we pass to connect the first time we call it, and then we pass character list to that, and we export that whole thing. The first thing we need to pass to connect is a function that is typically called map state to props. And what that essentially does is, it's all right there in the name. Map state to props will receive the state from the store, and then we have to return anything that we want passed to our component through props. So for example, in this case, we want to grab all the characters out of our store. Now here I'm using ES 2015 destructuring, object destructuring. I know that store is going to be passed here, or state, depending on how you want to think about it. And we know that's going to be an object. So what I'm doing is I'm destructuring that, and I'm saying, hey, you know what? I only want the characters. And it's going to pass me the characters. Now I know that I also want to return all those characters. So using arrow functions, I know all I want to do is return an object. So we can use this sort of syntax here, which means we're just returning an object, and we're just going to put characters in there. This will make sure that the characters are pulled out of state and then passed directly to our character list. But you may be saying, how do we get this to work? Well, we simply just have to pass map state to props as the first parameter to our connect function. This means that since we know props are what are passed to a functional component like this, we know that we can then pull those characters directly out of props, and then we can use them. Now the nice thing is, we're not going to have to do any sort of processing in here, so we can just return directly from this. If there's only one line, one literal return from a function, from an arrow function, then we know that the brackets are not required. So we're going to return a div, and it's got an ID of character list. And we also know it's going to have a class of MD6. This class just comes from Bootstrap that we pulled in the second video. Okay, so we have our little div here, and we'll put all our stuff inside. We're going to add an H1, and it's just going to say characters. Pretty simple. And then we're going to create a list of all our characters. Now everything that I'm going to be doing now is just regular React stuff. So I'm actually just going to map over each of our characters, and that will receive the character, and we're going to turn each of those into an LI, or a list item. The key for each list item will be the name of the character, because we know each one will be unique, and then we're going to put the name of the character inside the list item. And that's all we have to do to connect our component to the store. So now that we've actually connected it and everything, we have this component, we now need to display it. That's the last piece we need to do. So to do that, you need to go back to our app.js file, and we need to import our character list. And then all we're going to do is output our character list inside the row there. So now that it appears that everything should be working, let's go back to our terminal and restart our server. And it looks like something must be broken. we can see the characters is being outputted to the page. So let's go back to the character list and take a look. And oh, yep, it looks like I added some braces here when I didn't need them, and so it wasn't returning. Okay, so let's see how this looks on the page now. And our characters are being outputted to the screen. So now that we have our characters being displayed on screen, we need to add the interaction with them. In this case, we're going to make it so whenever we click, we go get more data on them. So in the next one, that's exactly what we'll do.